Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Andrew Moran, Graham Noble, Dave Patterson, and Scott Cosenza. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. The highest inflation in 4 decades, food costs nearly doubling, and gas prices $5 in many places, near $7 a gallon in others. This is not normal, no matter what the Biden bunch tells us. If it walks and quacks like a recession, well, it begs the question, when will the party in power admit we're in the middle of one hell of a Biden-made disaster? Go ahead, Andrew, scare the bejesus out of us.
Well, if you look at the baseline scenarios, a lot of Wall Street firms, market analysts, the U.S. is definitely heading to a recession. You look at the recent Atlanta Fed Bank GDP Now model, their numbers came in at 0% for the second quarter forecast. Now, this is important because their numbers went from 2.2% just a few weeks ago all the way down to 0% now. So that's a critical factor. The Federal Reserve, they raised interest rates to 75 basis points. Why does this matter? Well, because first of all, the U.S. Central Bank, they say that they want to have a soft landing of the economy, which means supporting economic growth and fighting inflation. Now, if I said that in a recent article, I was speaking to a couple of economists, and they said if Jerome Powell could do that, he should have his face planted on Mount Rushmore, because that's going to be an impossible feat to have. And it's just not going to happen. You have 8.6% inflation, and then you have a target rate of 2.25%. The real interest rate is still negative. So the Federal Reserve isn't doing anything whatsoever. What else is going on in this economy? Consumer sentiment has crashed. Look at the recent University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. That went to 50. The PMIs are not great. The only thing you could say that's going well in this economy is the labor market. The job openings are near all-time highs. Wage growth is high. But then on the other hand, you look at the numbers too. Small businesses are slashing jobs. Wage growth has been annihilated by excessive inflation. So now the Fed, they're looking ahead. They're saying the economy is slowing, but their credibility has absolutely been dismantled. It's been eviscerated because the whole inflation's transitory. So when they say the economy is going to grow, 2.2%, flip that to negative 2.2%, and then perhaps they have an authentic discussion. So this economy, Karine Jean-Pierre, she said that this economy is historically great. I don't know what the heck she's smoking. I don't know what the heck she's talking about, but every data point you measure in the current economy, whether it's retail sales, which contracted, whether it's the manufacturing PMIs, which declined yet again, or if it's, personal savings rates collapsed, consumer credit growth has surged. So every data point, it shows a terrible Biden economy, and it's not morning in America, it's morning with a U in America.
Well, Scott, it's interesting because the ruling class, the affluent class, they don't really notice this. It costs a little more for my steak, but whatever, I still want a strip. But for the people kind of on the margin, the people that have to drive maybe half an hour to work every day and sit in traffic on the Beltway or whatever, they're feeling it at the pump. They're feeling it at the grocery store. How is it that the Democrats are the party of the little guy? I don't get it. There's a massive disconnect here.
Lisa, I don't think it's fair to blame Joe Biden or Democrats for the unprecedented greed we're seeing in the marketplace. Clearly, the oil barons are using this as a chance to soak the American people. The single dollar cost increase per gallon means effectively, that would be an interesting to me economics question, Andrew, is how many thousands of families are now really going to have to cut back on something important to them for each dollar that an additional, gallon of gas costs. And of course, I know that this panel understands it, but for the ridiculous people out there who don't understand, that also affects the price of electricity to put in your car if that's how it's run. All this energy cost really increases the price of everything, and it's cascading, Lisa. We haven't even seen the likes of what's going to happen to the food costs, if you can find it. I know that, you wrote that piece about the scavenger hunt to find this and that on the market shelves. But once that food cost production level increases, we're going to see not only this huge increase in costs continue, but also then you can't even find the thing that you'd be happy to pay double for, and it is crushing the least of us, which are, as you say, who those progressives wrap their hero's cape in to protect, right? The people on the margin, and they are suffering the most for it.
Well,
Yeah,
I did.
Sorry.
Well, I did write a piece called "The American Scavenger Hunt: Turning the Game into a Reality." I've heard from so many people say, I had to go to 3 grocery stores to find cucumbers. What? This is the United States. But then what happens when you have those rolling blackouts? What happens to those grocery stores? What happens to the frozen food section? Oops. There's a problem too. I mean, it's just, I think the politics of this are absurd because on its face, because people just can't live this way, Graham.
Well, yeah, and I'm totally convinced that this is absolutely deliberate. What's happening here, there's no doubt in my mind about it, because it's very simple. The harder you make life for people, unfortunately, the masses in general, the harder life becomes from them. The more they will cry out for government to do something, and the more they will be willing to give up any remaining freedoms they have in exchange for a little security.
So you're saying recession is all part of a big progressive plan?
I believe it is. I believe it's completely it comes back to the old rules for radicals. You overload the system. And I think they're trying to do it. And if I was actually a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, I would even venture to go as far as saying that they are trying to rip the country apart at the seams before the midterms, so that they don't have to deal with that horrendous, butt whooping that they are going to take at the polls.
I think underlying this whole thing, and we've kind of forgotten it because it hasn't reached the Washington paper above the fold, is the fact that we still have an incredible problem with our supply chain. And if you think that, just reducing the number of ships in the queue at Oakland or Los Angeles by 2 or 3 is going to solve this, you'd be wrong. Everything about the supply chain uses fuel. And that fuel, when it goes up, the supply chain cost goes up. And if you could ever get it back going again, we would see an even greater increase in the cost of goods.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, there were so many points I wanted to address with all points that Scott, Dave, and Graham mentioned. Off the top of my head, when Graham says the American people will be willing to give up their freedom for any ounce of security, I mean, you look during the height of COVID, when both Republicans and Democrats passed that massive stimulus checks, gave everyone $1,000, $1,500. People were willing to accept that. People called for that, but they abandoned economics 101 because that money fueled this whole inflation we have today. That's putting $2.2 trillion into an economy created the 8.6% inflation because you had this, this huge supply of cash with too few goods. So it created this disaster. When it comes to what Dave mentioned about energy, yeah, he's absolutely about the supply chain and energy. So what the administration can do, actually a good report came out from the American Petroleum Institute last week. They said that one thing Biden could do if you want to ease the supply chain meltdown and lower energy costs simultaneously is remove steel tariffs, because steel is very important for not only producing energy, but also transporting and refining it too. So that's
and
an aspect.
Trump was big into that. Trump was all about removing the steel tariffs, right?
He was? No, he was what? No, he increased tariffs. He applied tariffs
from China.
Yeah, in China.
From China.
No,
right.
No, that's not true. If you look at that's not true, because he applied steel tariffs on 4 southeastern nations as well. Taiwan, not Taiwan, the Philippines, and sorry, I escapes me right now, but 4 in total, 4 other than China. So that's the thing. But also, if you look at the recent BAA data, it found that import prices were 0.3%, but export prices were 2.8%. So this is also a huge U.S. inflationary centric problem. It's not just the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says, inflation's happening globally, but it's mainly concentrated in the United States because, like I say, if you look at those trade prices data, that's crucial to see how much it is producing stuff in the United States compared to producing stuff in the rest of the world.
All right, well, I stand corrected. Well, no matter what kind of pretty face you try to put on it, the economy under Joe Biden is one holy mess. And when the man from Scranton campaigned on a long, dark winter, He should have warned us that it would last his entire first term. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Join us in the member zone, just $17.76 for the entire year. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio, and our executive producer, Sarah Cowgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.